Should we? Brexit and health. How did the NHS cope with a mass exodus of staff after Brexit, and how do the EU staff who are already here feel about the result of the referendum? Let's talk to Dr. Kishan Rees, who works at Lincoln Hospital. It's a borough which voted to leave the EU by almost 76%. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's an interesting question, this. I don't quite why we've posed it in this way, I don't know, but there is no indication, is there, that there's going to be a mass exodus of staff as a result of Brexit?
I think that's entirely right, and I think the first thing to kind of bear in mind is scaremongering like a mass exodus is not particularly helpful to discussion or debate, to be perfectly honest. I think what's more likely is we'll see a slow, gradual decline. As a healthcare professional, as a doctor, my concern is you see colleagues that have come over to the NHS to help provide healthcare, and they've been made to feel unwelcome, and they've been made to feel not wanted, and that's no way to welcome kind of international professionals and colleagues that provide an excellent standard of care.
But the idea of the people who are the immigrants who've come over here to work, it's not actually a view on them, particularly, that's been reflected in this vote, is it? We're not actually trying to make them feel unwelcome. We're just, people have had their say on the whole EU issue as a whole.
I mean, that's another little soundbite, isn't it? There's a few, like Brexit means Brexit, and the people have spoken. As a doctor, I deal in kind of facts if I know them, and I'll say that I know them. And that's something that I haven't really seen with politicians too much. It's been played out in the media in sound bites and little snippets. You know, £350 million on the side of a bus, I think that will have influenced a lot of people, because the NHS is very popular and it's almost like a religion. And if the politicians are allowed to say things like £350 million a week going to the NHS, and then the day afterwards they're going to say, well, actually, sorry about that, it could be spent anywhere, is that really open? Is that really what we should be encouraging?
You're talking about the slow and gradual decline of European workers within the NHS. That's your forecast. 110,000 of them already working in the NHS at the moment. And the Royal College of Nursing has said that, you know, the health service already stretched staff shortages. What would it mean, do you think, for the NHS if we do see that slow and steady decline?
I think it'd be a disaster. Speaking as a doctor, I think I see the rota gaps that these doctors and nurses plug. And if they weren't there, then it would be a real problem in terms of the healthcare that we can tell you. Patients are going to suffer, people potentially have to wait longer, people might not get surgeries and things. So yeah, I don't think it's particularly helpful that there's a nasty air in the right-wing press in terms of British jobs for British people. And Jeremy Hunt has, to be fair, talked about increasing medical student numbers. But this is an example where government policy is not necessarily directly translating to health, because the new medical students that he's talking about are going to take 10 years to come on tap. So whilst it's a positive step, it's not going to help in the immediate short term.
And as a percentage, if they all left, if every non-British doctor, nurse left your hospital, how many would that be? Well,
in terms of Boston specifically, there's 111 consultants at Pilgrim Hospital in Boston. 16 were born in the UK, 24 were born in the EU, and 71 were born outside of the EU. Wow. So these are consultants that are at the top of their field, they're experts in their area, and they're running the show, they're running the service.
But there's no one's claiming they would have to go.
We don't know. Nobody's come out and said, nobody's come out and cleared, from a government point of view, we don't know either way, do we? Because there's all this talk about they might be used as bargaining chips, and who knows, and as long as British nationals abroad are protected, we can't give any kind of confirmation until we know.
Oh, well, look, hopefully we'll find out. Dr. Rees, thank you. Good to talk to you.